So I'm pleased to introduce Ellsworth Corum III. I had the opportunity to first meet him at my first SunPower convention in 2019. And at the time, he was Vice President of Sales and Marketing for ESA Solar, and they were seeking to transition to master dealership status when we first met. And there is no one better to brainstorm about solar than this man right here. So let's get started. So at the dealer conference, what was your first impression of me?
Oh man, I was super impressed with just the way you carried yourself and your knowledge of marketing and the tools and assets that you thought you might be able to deploy to our company. We were looking and kind of struggling with figuring out a lot of marketing efforts, having a mild amount of success. And I got the impression that, working with your team, we'd find much more success. And that's what we're looking for.
And so what have you been doing since you left ESA?
So for a short stint, I started doing some consulting on my own. I was working with Ariel, and then also started a company called Sunlight Pros. And I was basically providing some consulting to roofing contractors as well as other solar contractors who were trying to improve their sales processes, reduce some of their rescission rates, and also roofers that were interested in rack mount solar and adopting it into their platforms for the residential marketplace.
And what do you think has changed in solar marketing since you first got started?
Oh my gosh, since I first got started. Geez, I started in 2009, so there's a significant amount of marketing going on right now that wasn't actually happening back then in 2009. Everything we did was mostly thermal based. You would introduce a little bit of photovoltaics, typically to what we used to call the tree hugger crowd. But most of it was door knocking, local businesses. It was very small, nowhere near the scale that it's evolved to in the past 15 or so years. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of web presence, but what you did do was probably Angie's List, some other online, home improvement that was modestly good, local at the time. And then out of that, it was more when you had an opportunity talking about a product that you were there to sell, which would have been a solar thermal water heater or a solar pool heater. Since they were already environmentally inclined, you would bring up the photovoltaics as an option.
Right.
Nowadays, it's massive, repeated phone calls, constant messaging, door knocking, canvassing. Everyone, I think, in the last 5 to 7 years started jumping into the solar arena, and to tendency, it'll bring in some bad actors, right? And so I think that that's been a damaging aspect of the industry in the eyes of the consumer.
Yeah, I agree. And so tell me, is that kind of how you came up with the idea that we became Aerial Impacts?
Yeah, so that was a fun concept, I've always had a creative nature and trying to figure out ways to, get a larger impact or response from any particular demographic. And so I kind of deduced the idea that, from an old fashioned salesperson like myself, we do what's called clover leafing a neighborhood, right? So you go to a house, and then when you're finished with the appointment, obviously you know the name of the homeowner, and then you would go to 6 houses up the street on the same side of the street, cross the street, knock on those doors, let them know that you were talking to that customer potentially about solar power and what impact it might have on their bill, and to see if you could pique their interest. You'd cross the street, do the same thing down for 12 houses, back over in 6 houses, back to where you were. So that was clover leafing. So it kind of hit me that if I'm going to try to sell this one person and then influence the immediate homes around them, it might be interesting to see how people would respond if you pre-design their homes. And so, was struggling through some of that process and figuring out how to do the pre-design, how to get the sources done, because obviously there's a cost to that. Luckily enough, in India, they are making engineers that are 15 years old, right? And there's lots of people looking to do it, and you can find some folks to do it for a relatively inexpensive fee, as long as there was some volume associated with it. And so then it was trying to take that pre-design and then corresponding it, with the address in regular mail, because now you've got to have every house designed, and then we would calculate the amount of energy that system would provide, have that appear on the postcard, and then have the savings appear on the pros card. And, when we start getting to that level of technical aspect, I was lost. And so that's where your genius came in, and assembling some of that along with the graphics and figuring out how to streamline those processes. So, the whole idea is, hey, we're going to introduce it in this neighborhood. Let's see who stands up and raises their hand and says, wow, can you imagine you're a homeowner, you go to your mailbox and you see your roof with the solar system pre-designed on it, right? And then it says, hey, your roof could generate you $2,000.
Your neighbor's saving with solar.
Right, your neighbor's saving. What are you doing? You could save $2,000 a month. Did you know that? And I think in some cases we were actually putting in payment factors that showed monthly payments, like, hey, it would be as little
full soft quote.
Yeah, full soft quote right out of the gate. So it was fun, one of the more exciting pieces of doing business and trying to be creative and trying to stand out in the crowd, without being too overtly pushy with the customer and harassing them on the phone and,
it is that awareness part, at the top of the funnel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is very
because you got to
targeted.
pique the interest first, right? Because, you figure a subdivision has 700 houses. So if you design the whole subdivision, there's going to be 20 or 30 folks in there that say, you know what, I hadn't thought about solar.
Right.
And then of that, or maybe 100 people or 200 people, right? They say, I hadn't thought about it, and they'll call to get a quote, right? And then if the numbers work and, the person that's doing the explanation did a good job, then everyone's successful, right? And
I think the best part of I haven't thought about solar, with solar. But now that you're with GAF Roofing or GAF Energy, tell me about how roofing is so much different than a solar sale.
Yeah, so the product that GAF Energy created is, it's essentially a shingle. It's got a dual UL listing, so it can just be installed like a standard shingle, an asphalt shingle, and the house is completely watertight. The GAF is, the largest, asphalt shingle manufacturer in the country. And we have the best warranties, not even the best warranties.
50 years, right?
Yeah, up to 50 years, the Golden Pledge. So, and on top of it, GAF has a massive network of roofing partners across the country. And so, this product being able to be something that can be installed, with a regular roofing crew and 6 nail strikes on the shingle itself, revolutionizes the ability for massive deployment at a faster rate to get into that marketplace. And obviously roofers are, they're doing 10 times the volumes in terms of new roofs every year in comparison to traditional rack mount solar. But there's no better time to add solar than when you're getting a new roof, right? I mean, I used to think when I was in the solar business, it was when you're buying your home, or after you've been in it for a year and you've been punished by the utility, and now you're like, I need a solution. But the reality is that, in the environment we're in, the volume of people getting new roofs every year is massive. And, if you can just penetrate a percentage of that, gradually grow that into a larger share, you could have a massive impact on, climate change, in my opinion. It's not the be-all, end-all solution, but it's a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And I'm really excited to be a part of the team that's trying to put that piece together,
I think so. I think it's really going to change the way that people consume, or it's more accessible.
Right.
Because they have to have this new roof.
Sure.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize, or I didn't realize that, a lot of homeowner policies, they require you to have a roof.
Yeah, and sometimes they require you to have a new roof in 15 years in the Florida marketplace, for instance. Yeah. And, which is absolutely absurd, right? I mean, some of the baseline warranties that roofing products offer is 25 years, right? And some of these products will last that time, so then to force consumers to say, hey, we are demanding that you do this, is unfortunate, but then it presents an opportunity for them, in this case. I mean, but a lot of it is also retail roofs that are just standardly aging out. And then obviously, a huge aspect of the roofing business is the weather anomalies we're having with the storms, right? So, if a homeowner's roof was destroyed and the shingles are all, shredded and ripped up from the wind, they're going to get a new roof, right? And so, it creates a different environment where, once again, you're introducing new information to a segment of, the population that wasn't thinking about it, right?
Right, and now instead of having to come out of pocket potentially for their new, now they can take advantage of the tax credits and also offsetting their bill by, on average, 50%?
Well, I mean, it just depends. I mean, 50% is definitely possible. Heck, 100% is possible, but the goal for GAF and Standard Industries, our parent companies, that has been expressed to us and that we've adopted, is that we want energy on every roof.
Right.
So, whether it's a small system that can generate $40, $60, $100, or if it's a larger system because someone has a much larger home, and they want to generate the energy value that can get them to a $3 or $4 or $500 savings, we can do that. But what we want right now at this phase is for consumers just to take a step in the pool, right? So, even if you have a $150 power bill, why not just wash 60 of it away, right? Leave the other 100 there, do some home renovations that are energy efficient, right? Replace your antiquated, windows, your air conditioners, your water heaters, put different types of insulation in there. Things like that. And then you'll bring it down some more. And then maybe in 2 or 3 years, call your roofer back and get the finish, right? And now you're instantly at that 100%. Yeah. So where
do you think the industry is going to be in the next 5 years?
The solar industry or the solar...
Or building integrated design.
I mean, I think that with the resource and the tools and the team that I'm working with, we're going to be leading that. We're the tip of the spear. We've got fantastic leadership in every realm. We've got one of the leading photovoltaic scientists on the planet working with us. And we've got some very creative people that are resourceful out in Silicon Valley. I'm a small piece, right? So, I mean, there's probably people that could give you a lot better data than that. I'm going to give you my gut. And I think, 3 to 5 years from now, we'll be hitting, 300, 400,000 houses a year with this product, right? And so that's massive, right now it's about figuring out the recipe, so.
And how would we be able to create, are we having new plants manufacturing this product? I mean, how are we going to keep up with demand?
Yeah, so we've got a primary R&D lab that's out in San Jose, and in conjunction with that is the manufacturing plant. And we've got a second plant that's located in Georgetown, Texas, which is a little bit southeast, I believe, of Austin. So that plant's roughly 500,000 square feet. And it's going to be producing enough material for 30 to 50,000 homes a year. And from what I understand, that they're going to continue to build more plants in order to, keep up with the output if we can get to the demand.
That's great. Mm-hmm. So tell me, have you experienced any digital fraud of your own, or do you have any tips for our viewers about how to pick a partner?
In terms of marketing?
Marketing or just, in general.
Yeah.
I think it's, we like to talk about how to spot a fraud.
Sure.
And so
that's one of the things.
That's one of the things, right?
Yeah. So, it's funny. Get referrals. That's, to me, is probably one of the biggest things. And not just referrals from them that are, because someone that you're working with in marketing, they're going to give you their best clients, right? You don't know what they're going to tell their clients. Say, I want to talk to someone that was probably not so happy with you. Ask for something that's in the middle, right? I mean, you don't want to go to the bottom, right? I mean, every once in a while, something happens and there's a customer you can't satisfy, and you actually done everything you can as a professional to rectify the situation, but they are just not going to be appeased, right? We know those people are out there, so you don't want to talk to them. But maybe somebody you had a bump in the road with, right? Like, I would ask them to say, hey, let me talk to 2 or 3 clients that you had a bump in the road with. I'm not going to take their word as gospel, but I do want to hear what that feedback is. But outside of that, look at the body of the work, look at the intellectual properties that they've created and generated themselves, right? Because, individuality and creation, to me, is a highlighting point of the aptitude someone's going to have in the profession that they choose, right? Because if all they're doing is using tools that other people have created, how can they create something unique for you?
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so, you want the folks that, it's funny, I joke with a lot of my friends about what we call the box, right? and you know, how the world tries to squeeze some of us into the box. And, you know, they joke with me like, you know, you were set down without a box. I'm like, somewhere along the line, they were like, oh, we forgot his box, right? And I'm like, fuck your box, right? But, you know, you want people that think outside the box, right? People that can think on their feet, that are quick-witted, that know, you know, to me, those are signs of intellect. And, you know, once again, also who they surround themselves with, right? I mean, I'm good at what I do to a point, you know, but I've got people above me that they're talented in ways that I haven't even thought of because my brain doesn't work that way.
Right.
So you need those people around you as guide rails, right?
Yep.
Guide rails, right? And then you need people that have a high standard of ethics and morality. You know, I mean, you know, ultimately, I'm in this industry not necessarily just to make money, right? And pay my bills. You know, I've got 3 kids, and you know, they're all college age or post college. Some of them are still struggling, trying to figure it out. Boys will be boys, as they say. But you know, it's about, there's no planet B.
Right.
That's my thing, right? Like, you know, you see the super wealthy flying out to space, trying to go to the Titanic. You know, let's go to Mars, right? If you can terraform Mars, you know, in the words of Neil deGrasse Tyson, then just terraform Earth.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We're here. There's plenty of space. It's not about the money because nobody's going to spend it when we're all drowned.
That's right.
So to me, that's what the other piece of this puzzle is. And, you know, which keeps me going every day, right? Because there's a lot of obstacles, right? And there's obstacles that are out there that we're all trying to overcome, and just trying to disseminate the information to the end user so they can make a good decision. Jumping over the hurdles of bad actors, jumping over the people that are like gouging on cheap product. It's like, you know, there's so many different ways to do it, you know. And yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come and speak.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, you know, I'm super excited for all the success you've had, you know. I mean, to see you from, you know, that 4-year plus time frame to where you've evolved with your software and your team, you know, it's really impressive. So to see where you go from here, you know, I'm anticipating, you know, something fun. You know, I'll go grab the popcorn and watch for sure.
We'll do it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.